Now, welcome to the Plague Quarter. Plague Quarter has three bosses. There's again a lot of nature damage in this section. It's basically all nature damage. It's a huge pain in the ass. The trash is substantially easier than the last quarter, and there's less of it. So, there are, however, not one but two gauntlets in this wing. So get ready. Um, so now we're here. Uh, the first thing. Sorry if you heard that. The first thing that we're going to do is pull a stone skin gargoyle. They're the same as in the spider wing. They do an AoE poison as well as uh, a. They do that thing at 30% where they will heal to full if you don't kill them fast enough. So not a huge deal. We should not have any issue with that. Um, so we pull this pat, and then we get into this pull of three infectious ghouls and a couple of plague slimes. Plague slimes are not a huge deal. They do hit pretty hard, but the big thing is they shimmer like a Chromagus, except it's the bad kind where they resist all the spells from that school of magic. I think back in the day there was a way to control it by like you put a nature dot on it or something, and then it will say that it's resistant to that by the time you're killing the ghouls, and then you can blow it up with fire or frost or shadow. But I'm not honestly. I don't know if that's worth it. So the we'll just tank them and whatever. It's not a big deal. The infectious ghouls um, have kind of a rough AOE. They need to be separated. It's not good to try to cleave everything down here. But we'll have those assigned melee, and everybody else follow the kill target. So we do two pulls of that. Three if Warcraft logs is going to be idiotic and make us do everything. Um, there's another pat, which we will absolutely wait for, either to pass or we'll kill it. It does come a ways into the room, which is why we'll take this pull back here. Um, so we kill this guy. Again, same shit as always. And then we get into three double pulls. They're not targetable beforehand. You have to run up on them. You do the same shit. That was them casting Stone Skin. You do that three times. Or two times. I thought it was three times. It might be two times. And you're at Noth the Plaguebringer. He's a idiot. I hate him. So when you pull him, you're going to tank him kind of all in this center area. Here's his big abilities. Um, he spawns skeletons, and they come from here over on this pile straight ahead of me, and in this pile over here. He summons ads, and they actually do get more challenging than just little skeletons. But they also it's also a pretty he doesn't have a ton of health, so there's a good chance we only ever see the first wave of this. If it does become a second wave, we still shouldn't have a problem with it. These mobs are shackleable. There's all sorts of shit going on here. But so we're gonna have three tanks picking those up, kind of on the outside and holding them. Ranged, you're gonna DPS them down, just boom, 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 and then get back on the boss. Here's the boss's abilities. He puts a curse on people. That curse, kind of like the soul dust in AQ or sand dust or whatever it's called, it turns into a different debuff if it's not dispelled. So in this case, it's a curse. It needs to be decursed. It's called Curse of the Plaguebringer. What it does is nothing, but when it transitions, it turns you into an AoE bomb basically, and you start hitting everyone for like 1,000 shadow damage every 2 seconds around you. And so you can see if multiple of those happen, or even one, you can wipe a raid with one dispel not quick enough. You can quite easily wipe a raid or kill a bunch of people. It needs to be treated with the utmost seriousness. So yeah, it turns into Wrath of the Plaguebringer. If it looks like you're not going to get dispelled, and you're not able to dispel yourself, you got to run out of the raid. So you can blame the dispellers if you want, but there's also a sense of personal accountability here. You got to get out yourself. That being said, we have more than enough decursors to do this, so he doesn't hit everybody at the same time or anything. So his other ability is Blink, which is a threat drop, and it is a pain in the ass. So generally, we want people kind of clumped up, ranged and healers sort of clumped up-ish, a light spread. And when he blinks, someone, either a DPSer, ideally like an off tank that's waiting over here, picks him up and then brings him away from the raid. Not a huge deal, kind of like Shaz in Molten Core. The shitty part is when he blinks, everyone that's in melee range, or it might even be like 10 yards or something, gets crippled. That cripple reduces your time between attacks by 100%, reduces your strength by 50%, and slows you way down. It's like you move it like 20% or some shit. The tank needs to get dispelled immediately. So that they can go pick up the mob if necessary. But priests, your priority is the tank, and then you dispel all the melee so that they can get back into damaging. But he'll blink around a few times. Doesn't do it. I mean, he does it often enough where it's a pain in the ass, and you'll hate it. Everyone will hate this boss, but it's also not that difficult. So, again, ranged priority on these guys, and then on the boss, dispels are priority always. But Noth will hit pretty hard himself, but it's not something that's not manageable. And so then he will teleport, which is different than Blink. He teleports up to this balcony and taunts us for a while. More mobs will spawn quicker out of these zones. And mobs will spawn quicker out of these zones, and then everyone just sits there and kills them. And then he teleports back down, and he continues to summon mobs, and we blow him up. Noth should be dead by then. If not, then what happens is that additional types of mobs spawn out of here. I'll tell everybody what to do in case we get there, but it shouldn't be an issue. So, Noth overall pretty easy. There's not even a whole lot you can do from a protection standpoint to mitigate kind of shitty circumstances, because there are no shitty circumstances. Everything is controllable here. So, I could say you could take a greater shadow protection potion for Wrath of the Plague Bringer if necessary, but we have other systemic issues if you were not getting the dispel. So this brings us to a gauntlet. Mutated grubs have a little AoE, so ideally they get killed kind of when they're on the outskirts of the raid. There are going to be two tanking assignments here. One of them is the person kind of leading the pace is going to be tanking these large guys, which are plague beasts. They have a nasty AoE around them, so the melee can't DPS this guy. So melee, you're going to be doing grubs and the two kinds of bats. The bats charge around. It's annoying. I don't believe they have a silence or anything, though. So the idea is the bats are always kind of in the raid, and the mutated grubs are kind of tanked a little bit outside the raid. And the plague beasts are tanked 15, 20 yards ahead of the raid. Kind of like the hatcher, or not the hatchers, whatever the guys are in the suppression room in BWO. So they're tanked a little bit ahead of the raid, further out than we tank them in BWL. But we move through this. We will run straight through against this wall, and we will skirt this wall all the way through. I'm too big to fit through there because I'm a Tauren. And then again, we'll tank the plague beasts sort of out ahead of the raid. So, oh my god, we've gathered a bunch of stuff. We're going to AoE now. This putrid bite is from the ghouls. So the plague beasts need to again be tanked out in front, whatever. And the bats are charging at me. We're staying over here. We're killing stuff. It's a very, very easy gauntlet. We make sure everything go stand over here. We make sure everything is dead. We heal, mana up. This stuff does respawn, and it respawns quite quickly. We mana up just like we do in AQ and suppression room and BWL, whatever. Then we get to Higain, or Hygen, I guess is actually his name. So he starts on this platform. He begins as a really easy fight where he's prepping you for the fight to come. So there's 4 quarters of this room. It's, sort of here, here, then you pass the center line here, and here. And at any one time, 3 of those sections are going to explode, and it's a 1 or 2 shot if you're not standing in the right spot. Okay, so there's only ever one section of this that's not going to get exploded in poison. So what happens is all the range. So he has an AoE mana drain. It's really brutal. What you do is he also has an AoE disease, which I think is dispellable, but it's also just very healable. So the idea is when the fight starts, all of the healers and ranged will go up and stand on this platform. Melee, you're going to be with the tanks. So we're the ones that start the safety dance when it's at 8 or 10 seconds in between. So we'll be tanking them here, and then you'll see the room explode. And we'll move them all here. We'll wait for the room to explode. Then we'll all move here. And then we'll wait for the room to explode. And then we'll move here. And the ranged are just safely ensconced on the platform or whatever. We do that a couple times, and then it moves backwards too. So it moves forwards. Our safe spot is here, and then the next safe spot is here. And then the next safe spot is here. And the next safe spot is here. We literally just go back and forth. So then at some point, he'll teleport onto the platform. At that point, everybody comes and stands on the tanks because he's going to start doing what he was doing, but much faster. Do not try to cast. Do not try to do anything that is not instant, basically, because you do not have the time. So there'll be an explosion. We run. We're going to pause for we run to the closest to the edge as we can. It explodes. We move. 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 We're basically not going to stop moving that whole time. Nature prop potions are a good fucking idea because of the AoE disease, the fact that we can't really get any healing done. It's instant heals only. That means also instant cast damage. So that is a lot of dots, fire blasts, whatever. Do not try to cast. Mages can cheese it a little bit because of blink, but the number of mages I've seen that do successfully, pretty low. I mean, I could do it, but but I don't challenge you to do it because I don't want to wipe. So that's the whole fight, though. So let's look at what we get. I just want to see if we can proc a few of the dances here real quick. Feel free anytime, big guy. And we'll kind of go look. Okay, there's one. So where do we move? We move right here. This is close to the second one, but not on it. Okay, cool. Now what do? We move here. This is his AoE disease. Okay, cool. We move right here. We don't move too far because we don't want to have to move back in. This is the ends. The ends are always what gets people, by the way. Now we move back here because that's always the longest run, unless you're really brave. Okay, we move. And again, see, I went too far this time. It's easy to do. Um, so let's see if we can try to spawn the faster one. I think it happens at a certain percentage. It might be after a certain amount of time. Okay, here he comes. So we get back into our position 1. We're ready to go. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And so this is actually slower than it is in Classic, by the way. There's like an extra second on here. Anyway, so that's the whole fight. We do that a bunch. Next, we get to another gauntlet. So these... Oh, I missed a critical element to this fight. During this fight, he will randomly teleport 3 people into the tunnel. You get put at the far end of this tunnel. So when you see me run through this, pay attention. All of these things have a really low aggro radius, but they spawn in random locations. So, like, there are more eye stalks here than there normally are. But the idea is you have to get back to the raid and then wait out here until the safety dance is in a good spot for you to run in. These are interruptible, by the way. Everything in here is very low health. So the 3 of you, the 3 people that get teleported, need to work together to both try to avoid mobs, you know, and then kill the eye stalks if they aggro. You know, again, things really don't have a huge aggro radius here. I'm, you know, higher level, so it doesn't really, it's not a good indication, but they do. Here's a really good example. They do have chain threat though, so like if you pull one, a bunch of them will pull. We get to the end. We're all best friends. We get to Lotheb. So here's the big mechanic on Lotheb is he puts a debuff on people. Whenever you cast a healing spell, you can't cast another healing spell for 60 seconds. So what does this mean? It means that all of the heals, because he does hit pretty hard, all of the heals need to be put on the main tank, and they need to be spaced out. So Flunky will put together a healing rotation of 12 healers. Each healer heals every 5 seconds. You don't miss your time. If the tank is full for some reason, you don't want to overheal. If the tank is full for some reason, you can stop casting and try casting again, but it's not going to happen really all that often, so just get used to it. That's the big mechanic here. So the tank is tanking him, facing away, kind of basically right where he is now. Everybody is grouped up and in a good, you know, in a good position, but grouped up. And we have a healing rotation. Before this poll, by the way, everyone's going to have taken a greater shadow protection potion. This is a requirement. If you don't bring shadow protection potions to raid, don't bother showing up because you're wasting people's time. This boss, it is a requirement. Okay, so you take one, you pre-pot it, because every 30 seconds he'll do something called Inevitable Doom, I believe it's called, and he will do like 2,500 to 3,000 shadow damage to you. And since the healers can't heal you, that damage needs to be mitigated every single time, basically, because you can only take about 3 of those unmitigated before you die. So that's sort of the enrage mechanic on this fight, is how many times can you mitigate a Inevitable Doom. So the first one is going to come out and you're going to get hit and it's going to absorb your shadow prop potion. Cool. Take another one immediately. At that point, you wait another 30 seconds, you get hit with it again. Cool. That one's absorbed. Then the next one hits, you use a bandage. Quick little note. Um, quick little note: he has an AOE poison around him. It does not hit very hard. It's like 100 something or 200 something every 6 seconds. Not a big deal. Melee don't try not to worry about it too much. But when you bandage, melee have to run out of range of it first. Otherwise, it will cancel your bandage and you will not get the full value of it. Um, so that's the big. So that's the big thing. So that you bandage that one. Then ideally we have enough Hellstones. If we think we're going to get a kill, we'll pass out Hellstones. Then you can use a Hellstone. Then you can use a Shadow Prop Potion again. Or you have to take one and then use a Shadow Prop Potion again. And then your bandage is up again. And then at that point, you're going to take 2 in a row, which is where things get rough. So that's where we want to kill the boss. So how do we kill a boss with so many HPs, you say? Well, here's the big thing. These spores will spawn. We will assign 4 or 5 DPS groups together. These spores will spawn. 5 people, all 5 people in your group will run up to the spore. You'll detonate the spore, and that spore will give you a buff. That buff for melee is 50% crit and no threat. That buff for casters is 60% crit and no threat. So mages and warlocks will go first, because we want them generating no threat and doing huge ignite damage, and then warlocks just generate a shitload of threat, and scale very well with crit. And then we'll run through a couple of melee rotations with the spores, ideally while Lothep is getting closer to an execute range, so we can spam crit executes. And that's it. That's the whole fight. The fight is literally just managing a cooldown every 30 seconds and healers knowing your place in the rotation. So there's going to be a lot of communication on this fight, a lot of vocalization. Expect to take 3 or 4 Greater Shadow Protection Potions every pull. Hopefully we get this in one pull. That would be awesome. However, this is a difficult boss. And there's a lot of mechanics and there's a lot of organization. However, if people understand their assignments, they understand what the mechanics are, and they do them, it's not a challenging fight. We can out-consumable and out-mechanic this fight. It is not an output fight. So let's see in fish if we can get a spore here. The other big thing is the spores move towards the raid, I believe. We cannot, under any circumstances, let a spore get to the tanks, because if the tank is generating no threat, we're in bad trouble. Okay, look. Oh my God, fungal creep. So that's the way that works. So now I'll really fuck them up, and the boss is dead. Ta-da! And that's the whole play quarter.
There we go. This finishes our explanation of the play quarter. Tune in for the next one.